This is E.T. in part one of the Prophets of Science series. One Valdemar Kempfert, that was in a 1952 Popular Mechanics book, made a prediction for the year 2002. And he got a few things correct. For example, he predicted factories would be powered by natural gas. Well, that's happened. But he also said homes would be all electric. And no, that has not happened. He predicted thoroughfares or freeways that, when he wrote in 1952, existed only in a few municipal areas. He said they would link every state, and that happened. But he also said that they would be double-deckered freeways, sometimes triple-deckered in cities. He predicted widespread use of solar energy, and he saw it coming much earlier than it has. He predicted built on-site plastic homes, complete with air conditioning, indoor plumbing, all electric appliances. Those were not available to many Americans. Well, as things turned out, the houses in 2002 were pretty much put together the same way as before, with some notable exceptions. He predicted plastic tableware that would be flushed down a kitchen sink under extremely high temperature water, and B, plastic furniture that would be spray washed by an indoor water outlet. The water and debris would then flow into the middle of the floor, which was slightly recessed, and go down a drain in the middle of that floor. Now, all of this stuff using plastic would be an environmental nightmare, unwanted, impractical. It didn't happen. He predicted daily deliveries of partially cooked, frozen, lab-created, from wood chips and other things, meal bricks that would be thawed in a radar oven. You know it as a microwave. Well, here are the facts. The pre-frozen, lab-manufactured food today appeals only to a very small niche group of vegans, and the use of microwave ovens is limited primarily to heating coffee, but not cooking whole meals. Kempfert did come close with a few other predictions. For instance, the combination television phone, that actually was available on a limited basis in the late 1960s, but very few people were interested in owning one. It had been written about earlier that people like to communicate directly, but in a less personal way. In other words, they like the voice communication over the voice and picture. And today you're seeing them preferring texting over phone conversations. More interesting is what Kempfert and others missed completely. Examples include nuclear power. Kempfert saw nuclear power useful only for powering passenger ships. But as things turned out, nuclear power was already being considered for generating electricity for cities, that came to be, and powering submarines. That happened 3 years after Kempfert's prediction. To my knowledge, there's been no long-term successful use of nuclear power in passenger ships. He also missed the digital revolution, including solid-state motherboards and integrated circuits. In other words, he missed the computerization of almost everything. So the futurists such as Kempfert get a D-, in my opinion, for their peek into the year 2002. They missed the nuclear power revolution. Today, nuclear power generates about 10% of the world's electricity. He overestimated the influence of solar power. Today, solar generates a tad over 2% of the world's power. He did not even mention wind-generated power. That generates over 5% of the world's power. And he could not even fathom the implications of the transistor on computers. Though, to be fair, computers in 1952 were giant affairs. Electronic tubes powered them. They were good for calculating market projections and artillery trajectories, but not much else. Thomas Watson, founder of IBM, was reputed to have said during World War II, and I'm quoting him, "I think there is a world market for maybe 5 computers." Missing the computer revolution, and I think you and I would agree it was a real revolution, was a huge miss for Kempfert and Popular Mechanics magazine. In fact, all of the rest of the world's predictors. And couldn't someone have considered the possibilities of that transistor as a replacement for all those tubes in computers such as, ENIAC, UNIVAC, and the rest? That transistor had already been invented at Bell Labs by a team led by William Shockley. That was in 1947, 5 years before Kempfert's look into the future. Speaking of 1947, the outbreak of the Cold War, the initiation of the national security state, happened in that year. That security state gave birth to the CIA and later the myriad of later intelligence organizations. 1947 was also the year of the alleged flying saucer crash at Roswell, New Mexico. Now, various accounts exist regarding what actually happened there in early July of 1947. But United States Army Colonel Philip Corso, in his 1997 book entitled The Day After Roswell, writes that much of what made possible many of the later innovations in technology were due to the back engineering of the items retrieved from that Roswell saucer, including stuff that led to the integrated circuit. Now, I don't need to tell you that this sounds, incredible. But Corso's bona fides suggest his story might well be true. Before Corso retired from the Army, he had served under General Douglas MacArthur in Korea. Corso was chief of Special Projects Branch of the Intelligence Division of the whole Far Eastern Command. He had spent 4 years on the staff of President Eisenhower's National Security Council. Then he was made chief of the Pentagon's Foreign Technology Desk of the Army Research and Development. Corso served there under Lieutenant General Arthur Trudeau. According to Corso's story, things worked out like this. This or that piece of recovered equipment from the crashed Roswell saucer went to Corso's R&D office, and he found this or that manufacturer, which was told simply that this piece was foreign technology and that the manufacturer should try to back engineer it. Well, the manufacturer, according to Corso, did exactly that. And thus we have, among many other things, Kevlar, night vision apparatus, improved laser technology, and the integrated circuits and some of the other things found in computers today. By 1959, Jack Kilby at Texas Instruments came up with the first integrated circuit available for consumption, and about the same time, Robert Noyce comes out with the first monolithic integrated circuit. In 1971, we see the CPU function put on one chip, and everything has progressed since. If Colonel Corso was correct, that integrated computer chips were the result of, this foreign technology, then considering that Corso got hold of this technology in 1952, the very year that Popular Mechanics and Kempfert made their predictions for the year 2002, then it's understandable why the great prognosticators were so far off in their views for the future. But even if Colonel Corso made up the whole story, it's understandable how Popular Mechanics and the other predictors would miss the implications of the computer's influence, considering that there were so few of them, and they were giant affairs full of large and unreliable vacuum tubes, and they were used only for complex, usually mathematical, tasks. So, what's the whole point of this exercise? Well, primarily to show that the experts, as we're finding out in the field of medicine today, often fail to understand the full implications of much of what they themselves come up, and thus they are less likely, or at least no better, to know what's going to happen in the next year, the next decade, the next century. Sort of like the management at Xerox. Xerox invented and then gave away what could have been a monopoly on both the hardware and software for business and home computers. But that, my friends, is another story. This is E.T. Subscribe to this channel. Tell your friends about it on social media. Hit the bell icon to be notified of new uploads. Hit the like button and write in your comments below. Thank you.